it's like you keep telling yourself that they're going to love you and that this one will be different, and you just ignore the red flags. And then you sit there wondering, like, how did I get hurt again? And you tell yourself you're the hopeless romantic. And yet here we are again. A quarterback has decommitted from Florida State, and we're going to talk about it because that is what we do.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
For those of you that don't know, Chris Parson was the number 328 overall recruit in the country. He was a 4-star QB per 247 Sports out of, I want to say, Brentwood, Tennessee. Ravenwood was the high school. And unfortunately, this kind of felt like a running on the wall situation, but it does suck to the point where it feels like this is the second, doesn't feel like it is, it's the second consecutive year where we've had one QB decommit, but I have a feeling that on the horizon, we will see that decommitment be replaced by another QB commitment, and by the name of Mr. Brock Glenn. Last year, it was Nicco Marchiol decommitted. Then we got AJ Duffy after the spring game. This year, Chris Parson goes to Elite 11. Then we hear, the folks over Tony Tokar is a little more in love with, I guess, Brock Glenn's game, offers him. And now, me personally, I think it's interchangeable between the two talent-wise. I'm just a little more upset that I want to be able to actually bring two high school QBs in a class, and we haven't been able to do this so far since the first year under Mike Norvell.
Yeah, and I think what you lose with Chris Parson is a higher floor than a Brock Glenn.
Agreed.
But I think that you gain a higher ceiling and B, more patience, because I want to walk the folks through the timeline of Chris Parson. Chris Parson committed to us last July. Again, he was a 3-star at the time. He wasn't a 4-star yet, but he was seen as a Mike Norvell. Okay, maybe he's found himself something here, a Trayshawn Ward of quarterbacks, because he was not heavily recruited, relatively underrated, but the tape was there. Like, if you watched his tape last summer, you're like, okay, for a kid that was that was 2021, so was going into his sophomore year, was in his freshman year when COVID hit, and had to deal with that for some of his most important developmental years. He looked amazing on tape. And he only continued to get better, right? We hear, okay, he's starting to make moves at 7-ons. Last season, I think he threw for should have pulled the number up, 2,500 yards or something like that as high school. And he led them to the D1 or the 6A D1. I don't know why state quarterfinals and a 10-3 record, moving to Tennessee from Texas. And you're like, okay, we're going to get something. But then
It's pretty good. Yeah.
We saw the bad side of Chris Parson, right? We saw he had no interest in us recruiting multiple quarterbacks. And I think that this is akin to, you meet a great girl, but you live in different places and you have different life goals. And as everyone who's grown up knows, you can only force stuff so long. If you have different ideas and views for your future, it's not going to work out. And I think that's what happened here. And I think, Drake, that's why I'm not as bummed about this one as I was about a Sam Howell situation, because like you said, the writing was on the wall, but it also makes sense. He wants to be the star of a class. He wants to be the only kid that gets recruited. And to his credit, he has shown he'll put in the work to be a bell cow, to recruit the class around him. And he deserves to be an only recruit. I'll give him that. But we can't only recruit one high school QB this year. I would rather strike out going for 3 and only get one than to say, hey, we're just going to take one, because our depth, tell me if you disagree, just can't really afford that right now.
No, I completely agree. I think Chris Parson talent alone, I think his ceiling is a lot higher than Brock Glenn's because of the sort of mobility he brings to the game overall. To me, I think the one thing is that if this was maybe a few years ago, remember the one year we brought in DeAndre Francois, DeAndre Johnson, and I think the other one was Malik Henry in that same class?
Yeah.
I think the year after that, we only took in one QB, and that was Jason Cosentino. And I think Chris Parson is someone that's leaps and bounds over Jason Cosentino. He is athletic enough and talented enough at the QB position as a passer to actually come in by himself. Unfortunately, like you said, we only have 4 scholarship quarterbacks We only have 4 scholarship QBs in the room right now. That is not good at all, period. Sorry, we have 3. I forgot Gene English doesn't have a scholarship yet, but he will have one very, very soon because of his TikTok. But overall, like, you got to bring in 2. And if he doesn't want to be second, if he doesn't want to bring in 2 people, that's fine. But unfortunately, that's what we have to do. And, best of luck with the kid. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes over to the Dallas area, maybe SMU or Red Lashley. That'll actually be a really fun offense for a skill set to watch. But we need to go after somebody else. And I wanted to get the Emory Williams kid that committed to Miami a few weeks ago before Jaden Rashada. That's out the window. So now I just don't know what options we have on the board as of right now.
Well, I think we need to keep in mind what is going on. We have been decommitted from on July 12th, 2022. We have 5 months until National Signing Day. And I know it feels like forever, but in 2018, who was on UNC's big board for their quarterbacks right now, this time in 2019 or 2018? And they end up landing Sam Howell, who was, Ole Miss probably 2 years ago was probably in the message boards like, we really need a better quarterback. Like Matt Corral's doing okay, but who's going to follow him up? And then they stole Luke Altmeyer. There's no law that says Florida State can't start winning on the field, showing what Mike Norvell's offense allegedly can do, and go land a good quarterback recruit.
The only reason I'll push back a little bit on that is mainly because quarterback recruits typically pick where they want to go, I guess already where they are. So it's harder to flip kids than the 2 kids you kind of already mentioned. Sam Howell, he's a hometown North Carolina kid, and also with Walt Bell leaving, who's primary recruiter, you kind of don't want to go where offensive coordinator's not going to be at. And then Luke Altmeyer, I know I don't need to go too deep in it, but Mississippi recruiting is weird. And he's a Mississippi kid, even though ironically his dad was the team doctor at Mississippi State, actually, when he was there for a little bit. So it's very difficult, but maybe for unranked QBs we can go after. I just think it's going to be very difficult to find one of an FSU quality at this point. So maybe we go to the transfer portal again, but I just really don't want to keep using that as a Band-Aid.
As annoying as it is not to get Chris Parson, not Parsons. He reminded everyone of that on Twitter. We did pick up a 4-star offensive tackle, and not the biggest guy at his high school, so they put him at tackle, even though there's no shot he plays exterior lineman at the next level. This is a legitimate 6'7", 6'8", Swedish offensive tackle, Lucas Simmons. And Drake, I'm bummed we didn't talk about this because we're coming late to the party. But folks, if you check the comment timestamps, his father and I did have a bit of a dialogue on Monday before his commitment. So Locked On Seminoles was the first on there. I'd also like to say it was mentioned around the beat once people looked it up, but I was telling people, hey, go look at tape on European handball. That's what he grew up playing. European handball, their defense is very similar to pass blocking. I know this because we had a fraternity brother who was a massive Croatian. And I was like, well, what does a large human play in your country? He's like, I play the handball. And
that is how he talks too. Yeah. He's not even.
No, it is. It's an interesting corollary because you're basically trying to guard the crease because shooting is kind of like lacrosse. It's not like a great save percentage is not that high. So you're really trying to keep guys off. And it is a lot of that point of attack, kind of just hands, trying to keep the guy off of a certain point. The one thing about Simmons, I will say, because we have to give the full picture, if you watch his tape, you do see some of the soccer player in him. And I don't mean he's soft or anything like that, but you can tell his natural instinct right now isn't to invite contact. Doesn't mean he's scared of it. Doesn't mean he shies away from it or anything like that. It just, you can tell he's kind of, in certain situations, having to be all present and say, oh yeah, you can shove this guy right now. Like you don't have to defer to the guy approaching the ball carrier. So he'll develop out of that, though. I think it'd be a great tackle at Florida State.
Yeah, put that kid in a weight program for a year, and I bet you he starts probably in 2024 because that kid has got the frame to be large and in charge, and he definitely has the ability to under Coach Atkins and also Josh Storm's strength and conditioning coach to actually develop a mean streak if you watch him play in. How exciting is it to have possibly him and Julian Armella on the left side of the left tackle and left guard spot? To think about that. And Julian Armella is a kid that we've already seen become and already in great shape. Already has a mean streak if you look at his actually highlight tape. Like this offensive line, we might be talking about it as the best unit heading into 2023, and I'm actually super stoked about it overall.
I agree. Yeah, I think that is a position that we just continue to build. And I think it's great that we're seeing them continue to add depth to it. You know, I think, Drake, you brought up a painful example when you talk about the J.J. Constantino year. But the reality is you signed 3 top 50 quarterbacks. I don't mean top 50 for that position, top 50 overall guys.
Yeah, they were good.
The class before, and you're thinking, hey, we're set. Like, one of these guys is going to pan out. Well, one of them decides to do one of the most despicable things a person can do on videotape. The other is just a walking behavioral nightmare who's been kicked off 3 football teams at this point. And the other one went down with a torn, jacked up knee, and we end up with James Blackman. It's like, oh, sometimes the universe just absolutely slaps you in the face, and that's why you have to be prepared. And it's cool to see Alex Atkins not going, oh, I just got 5 offensive linemen, I'm going to chill. No, we're going to take 4 to 6 more this year. Probably more likely 4 than 6. But it's good to see at least someone's got the mentality of being prepared for the future at the position where we most need that mentality.
Especially if you want to bring in quarterbacks to be protected by that offensive line. Also, when you bring quarterbacks, you'll bring in wide receivers who actually want to be part of a passing attack too. So that's kind of like basically we live and breathe and die by the trenches. That's how you build a team. That's how you build a winning football program.
As much as it sucks missing out on Chris Parson, as long as we can get a high school kid in there, I think we're going to be fine if we can keep getting offensive line prospects like a Lucas Simmons, like a Julian Armella, even transfers like Caden Lyles to fill the gaps as needed, or Dylan Gibbons, or those guys. I think in the long term, that's going to pay dividends. And like you said, the quarterback of our dreams will find his way to us if we can just build that foundation for him to take over.
You just said the quarterback of your dreams.
Of our dreams, buddy.
Of our dreams.
Of our dreams.
Of our dreams. Who's the quarterback of your dreams, Max? How would you describe him? Me? Like you're saying, while the Chris Parson loss, it's a big loss. It's a reverberating loss. So long as we're able to, I guess, replace the talent that he's able to bring in, because like I said, he has a high floor, high ceiling. Like maybe, like you were saying, maybe we do win 8 games. Maybe we do bring in somebody else towards the end and basically snatch one after we got quarterback snatched the past few years. Maybe we do that. But as of right now, only time will tell. And basically, we just need now. We're only 55 days away from playing LSU. We're 48 days away from playing the David Duquesnes, the fighting David Duchovny's. So that's all we can do right now is wait and see, because I need some football. God, I need some football.
Gosh, that's absolutely right, buddy. Your lips to God's ears. I think that's the tough part, is it feels like so long. But hey, we're going to see how it works on the field, because can't play the games for them. And it's going to go one of 2 ways. We're either going to be really happy or we're going to be really sad, but it all starts on the field. So, Drake, thanks for taking some time out of your evening to swing over and do this instant reaction with me. Folks, make sure you stick around. We're bringing our new correspondent, Hunter Steele, from Brevard Sports Network and Seminole Productions, as well as some other radio work that he's done. He's done some writing, some covering of the team, and it's just really cool to have a young whippersnapper with, there you go, Built Bars, with a lot of energy, a lot of gusto, covering the team from on the ground. So make sure y'all stick around for that. Driz, I will let you get out of here for the evening, buddy, and I'm sure we will reunite before the week is over.
Take care, everyone. And the churro flavor puff is actually really damn good.
Yeah. So make sure y'all check out Built Bar, built.com. 15% off when you use the promo code LOCKED15. The puffs are good. The bars are good. Built Bar's got everything you need. 15 grams of protein, 5 grams of net carbs, and it is all you need. All right, folks, welcome to Locked on Seminoles. Today we have the first of hopefully many appearances by Hunter Steele. Hunter is something I'm not. That is young and still in Tallahassee. Hunter still works with Seminole Productions. He's also worked with Brevard Sports Network, doing interviews with coaches and covering the team. Done his own blogging. He's a communications major in the some sort of journalist program at FSU. And we decided here at Locked on Seminoles, we need to be able to have boots on the ground. Y'all know I love living up in Atlanta. Drake's down in South Florida, and Dave will be leaving Tallahassee for greener pastures in New York. So we were hoping Hunter can fill that void. Hunter, Thanks for bringing your knowledge, your experience, and nice little middle part haircut you got going on. So we appreciate all those things coming to Locked On Seminoles.
Well, shoot, I would have came to Locked On faster if I'd have known you were going to gas me on my middle part. But I'm very excited to be here. It's a very big opportunity, and I'm feel honored that you guys chose me to fill this position. I'm really excited to start.
I love it, man. I love it. So today we're going to talk about recruiting. Let's just start by talking about Lucas Simmons. He's the man of the hour. If you're like us, you put a lot of stake into what 19, 17-year-old kids, I'm just going to pretend they're at least 18, decide to do with their college days. And what's the feeling down there in Tallahassee? I know you're around the program a bit. I know that you're around, people who obviously talk about this nonstop, but was he a huge target down there? Was he someone they expected to land? Were they surprised? Walk me through the reaction on the ground to the Lucas Simmons signing, as well as the Ricks debacle after you give us the good news.
Yeah, I mean, if Florida State is signing a blue chip offensive tackle in 2022, things are going to be pretty grand in Tallahassee. He's a stud. He checks out. He checks all the boxes. I think he's going to be a really, really good kid. And, I'm excited to see. I don't think the recruitment is necessarily over. I think we've come to see that over these years, how it doesn't really mean a whole ton until a kid actually signs on the line. But, nonetheless, it's a massive kid, and we're loading up the trenches. That's kind of been the MO here for the past 2 recruiting classes, I'd say.
Yeah. And then again, we have the whole Ricks thing, but I'm going to choose to be the optimist here. And here's kind of what I've thought about the past few days. And I talked to a buddy of mine who played at UM, and I talked to a few other, not former FSU players, but collegiate players. And, how do I put this? Right now, Atkins is looking like the best recruiter in the room by far. And he probably is. I most likely is. But you got to think how many kids over the years at positions like quarterback, running back, receiver didn't want to come here because our offensive line was so bad. That doesn't really happen with offensive linemen. Very rarely will you see an offensive lineman, because think about who's protecting them from getting hurt. No one. So
themselves.
Right. So they're not relying on a quarterback skill so they can look good to the NFL. They're relying on their coach to develop them, to make them a better player so they can go get paid. So there's more of I won't say more. There's less downside to an offensive lineman going to a bad program with a good position coach than there is for any other position going to a not great program with a bad offensive line, no matter how good that position coach is. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, they open up everything for the rest of the team. They get to come in and play early. I think that's definitely a very enticing thing for prospects.
Yeah, and as I look down our recruiting board, you have to think, if you're talking to a kid who we'll speak about in a minute, like a Brock Glenn, who is a quarterback that we weren't really in on until a month ago, he's probably pretty encouraged knowing that the guys protecting him are going to be blue chip recruits and older transfers that we're seeing, right, that are going to let those kids have some time to develop before Brock Glenn sees the field, rather than him looking down the depth chart and going, hold on, who's going to be stopping me from getting bulldozed by 300-pound defensive tackles? What's going on here? So I guess what I'm saying, Hunter, is that my optimism is starting to tell me that while we are striking out at the skill positions, building up the trenches is going to be a force multiplier for the skill positions as we get later into the season.
Yeah, 100%. And not even so much Simmons is a great player, but we just haven't had depth along the offensive line the past few years. It seems just one guy gets hurt, then the rest of the line is just completely in shambles. Last year against Wake, we had Robert Scott, and I think Gibbons was out as well. We had 3 out of our 5 starting offensive linemen out. We got blown out. So, to have some consistency and have some depth there, I think it would make it very enticing for a kid like Brock Glenn, or another guy that's on our board like Hakeem Williams, someone else to come here. If they see that the trenches are loaded up, I think that's very enticing for.
Yeah, it's got to be. And you talk about depth. What do they have now? 23 offensive linemen in the room or something crazy. Maybe there's 18 of them and 5 walk-ons. But this line's depth, it can't really be overstated, because it does a couple things, right? Number one, when you have a deep offensive line, like you mentioned, guys get hurt, you have guys to replace them. Number two, you're not just replacing them with the best available body. You're replacing them with the best available backup at their position, which gets to like 2A/.3. I had the opportunity to ask Dylan Gibbons this question, and he basically was like, yes, exactly. It lets them not have to cross-train as frequently when they have a lot of rotational bodies that can play guard only, tackle only. So like, Hunter, let's take a guy like Dylan Gibbons, right? Or, let's take Mo Smith. Mo Smith last year started at center. He had to play a lot as a true freshman. Well, the problem was you had to have guys practicing center in case he went down and they'd have to slide over to center. It was only going to take one guy to completely derail your center position. And you think about the practice hours are a fixed amount, right? Every school in the NCAA, unless you're Nebraska, I guess, practices for the same number of hours, right? So if you can dedicate 100% of your snaps to one position, that's always going to be better than anything less than 100%. Now you've got Caden Lyles playing center, and Maurice Smith can also just play center. So you think about the development for that as an athlete, being able to solely focus on one position instead of having to like play your position and then go learn three others in case those guys get hurt. You got to think it's going to exponentially develop him this year. And we'll see a much better Maurice Smith in 2022 because of it.
Yeah, 100%. Consistency is one thing that has lacked on this team for, a number of reasons, but injury for that same that's a big key right there is the injuries would be having guys get hurt every single week on the offensive line. And like you said, having guys having to play center in practice, and then you're playing guard in game. And then next week comes around, you're back playing center in practice. I can't imagine what that would do for our team. And the results have showed, but I like Norvell's approach of just adding tons of bodies and doing exactly like you said, picking guys that will play one position, and you can have some stability there and not have to worry about, getting flipped across the offensive line all game.
So I want to talk some skill position. First, I got to thank our friends at Rock Auto. If y'all have been here, you know about Rock Auto. They help you fix your car by yourself. Don't waste your money on mechanics. Go to YouTube. It's not that hard. Just youtube.com. It's probably where you're watching this show. If you are watching it there, make sure you subscribe. And just Google how to replace the part. Then you're going to need to buy the part. So go to Rock Auto for it. I used to do a lot of my own car work. Fortunately, I'm in a position in life where I don't have to do that anymore. But when I did, I wish I'd had Rock Auto because I would go to 5 or 6 stores looking for a 2002 Jeep alternator. And trust me, it is a pain in the ass. Rock Auto makes it simple. It's cheap. Even with the supply chain issues, they're getting parts to you really, really quick. And then they're kind of like a family business. In fact, when you tell them, how did you hear about them? You just type in Locked On. No promo codes for Rock Auto. Just tell them about us. rockauto.com. All right, folks, thanks for rocking and rolling with us. Hopefully you are on YouTube and you're hitting that subscribe button. We love that y'all come here every single day because it lets us do what we love, talk about the team that we love, or the team that we love to hate sometimes when they hurt our hearts. But I'm hoping that is over. Hunter, I always like to live vicariously through the young folk in Tallahassee. It's one of my greatest pastimes. But
fun thing to do.
Yeah, man. What? But I think there's 2 important points I want to get to that someone in your situation could put into context for us. First of all, as an old person, we forget like how long time is because we think in years, right? Like it's time. We're like, oh, it's almost here, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's what we're doing with these recruits. So I'm not saying it's going to like, we should talk about Travis Hunter, but just give us some perspective. Like you're in Tallahassee, you see the city's dead right now. Like it's a long time until signing day. So I want to touch on that a bit of like, we need to stop panicking about what the recruiting rankings are right now, because this time last year we had a top 10 class. Miami had like a 60th ranked class. Florida was in the 30s and both of them finished ahead of us. Mm-hmm. So I want to touch on that. And I also just want to hear what the general mood is for the upcoming season around campus. What are the expectations? Is there optimism, or is it like, hey, I hope that alcohol doesn't get too expensive in the stadium because we're going to need a lot of it?
Well, that's always problem number one, I would say, is can they keep Doak wet enough for the people of Tallahassee to go through the withdrawals of football? But I mean, it's hard. I was talking about this with someone the other day. Every single commit, it means I'm just numb to it now. There's nothing until they sign their name on the paper. There's absolutely nothing that. I mean, I love Lucas Simmons. That is an awesome signing. But the first thing I can think of is it's not over. It ain't over until it's over. So it's kind of sucks to have that mentality and kind of be crushed like that. But I mean, I personally think that there is some optimism regarding the season. Like, if everyone can stay healthy, that's really it. I'm not too optimistic about our depth. That's the thing. So if there are some injuries, I think we will be in some trouble. But I mean, I think we're going to win some games. I think Jordan Travis will definitely win us some games this year.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, it's funny because, and I'm talking to y'all right now because you know that sometimes we have to be the voice of reason here. It's funny how on the recruiting trail, again, everybody who commits to another school is 100% signing there. No questions asked. Like, there will never be a decommit from Miami or Florida.
Yeah.
It's like, well, except like, I don't know, this time in 2013, Dalvin Cook was a Florida commit. Remember him?
Clemson commit too.
Right. And it's like, we're so quick to just assume the best for everyone except for us. And it's like, oh no, but you know, we don't, our class, what it is right now is what it's going to be. And you think about how quickly the recruiting class can change. And there's going to be one thing that does it. It's going to be winning on the field because guys, it is really, really hard to recruit skill positions when you win 5 games. And I think, Hunter, someone said earlier today, I forget who, you know, they're like, look, we're recruiting about where our win total is. You know, I know yesterday on the program, I think Drake said that Norvell's recruiting at a group of 5 level or something. And I pointed out, I was like, you guys, we pay Mike Norvell what Cincinnati pays their head coach. Like, I don't just want to make this like a crap all over the staff, but I think we need to have a little more self-awareness of where we are as a program, and 2, awareness of where we are in the year. It's July. We haven't played a single game. Like, this is a team last year who everyone and their mother, it felt like, said, oh yeah, we could win 8 games. Maybe we could even win 9 or 10 if we get lucky. And within the first 2 weeks of the season, we'd lost to Jacksonville State. So I don't know if I'm really faulting kids for not lining up to commit to us. But I kind of want to, I want to get your opinion. Does it feel like this is the type of team and the type of staff where if they do get hot and we end up 4-1, 5-2, something like that early in the year, we could start to see the recruiting tide reverse very quickly?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I'd like to think so. I mean, you look back at last year and I'm not surprised at all that any high quality receivers would sign to us when our leading receiver had 382 yards. There just hasn't been production across the board on offense. I mean, Ja'Shawn Corbin was a great piece last year. And I think that offensive line piece that we talked about in the last segment, they're kind of hesitant to recruit to a team with a faulty O-line. But I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily blame the kids until they start seeing us string together something on the field to give them something they can commit to and something they can feel right about.
Yeah, that point about the wide receivers is one that, trust me, we'll get touched on a lot. I mean, that's been a huge complaint of mine with Ron Dugans. I think it goes up a level, though, to Mike Norvell. If you watch a Mike Norvell offense, historically, he loves to spread the ball around, which is fine when you have the depth to do it. But last year, you didn't even really have a good number 1 receiver, but you had one guy with 5 touchdowns in Ontario Wilson. The second most touchdowns had 2. There was someone posted, was talking about Jordan Addison. And I went and I looked back, and if you exclude Cam McDonald, who also had 2, I think you needed like 5 of our top 5 receivers had as many touchdowns as Pittsburgh's Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
And people can say Jordan Travis this, Jordan Travis that. Jordan Travis was a 63% passer who was in the top 40 in efficiency stats. So like, I mean, the simplest answer is usually the right one. There just wasn't the receiver talent. And I know you mentioned when we were talking before that you're hearing good things about some of the receivers in the weight room, though. So who do you think could maybe break the trend and actually emerge as, I don't know, 5 is such a low bar, but be a 6 or 7 touchdown guy for us this year?
Well, I'll tell you, when I see Johnny Wilson walk around campus, I mean, I saw the guy in College Town the other night. The guy's
he was
massive.
having a water, just having a water.
No. He was getting food, and he lives around there.
He was picking it up to go. It was
No. He was going home. No, but the kid is massive. That is a red zone target and a half if I've ever seen one. I think Jordan Travis, he definitely improved on his passing ability as the year went on last year. I think Johnny Wilson is a guy I would watch for to be a red zone target and a guy who could break that 5 touchdown mark. Cause that would just be unheard of for us.
Which is crazy. Well, and here's the thing about Johnny Wilson too, that I find fascinating is you talk about his size. You mentioned that you've heard from people around the program that he's taking the weight room seriously. He was also, if you look at guys with over 100 snaps on Pro Football Focus, the number 1 rated pass block or run blocking wide receiver in the country last year, which means he's physical. Like you don't get a good pass blocker rating as a receiver unless you like to make contact and you invite it, especially a guy with arms his length. It's a miracle he doesn't get called for holding every time. If he was a wimp, if he was the kind of guy that just, I'm going to do some of this, there'd be holding flags all over the place, or people would just swipe his arm out of the way and go. So you got a physical guy, he's big, and then you think about what you need in the red zone, and what have you been missing? Physicality in the route running and big people that can catch. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I think a prime example of that was last year in the Jacksonville State game. We had Mackenzie Milton throw a 4th down fade to Keyshawn Helton in the first quarter. Nonetheless, we went forward on 4th down in the first quarter.
Was it 4th and 1, 2, or 4th? Like we could have just handed Jay Sean the ball and he could have walked.
Yep.
In.
Yeah, we threw a fade to our shortest receiver. So that's something I hope we will not see this year again. Us playing with our food and games like that, so to say. So yeah, I'm excited to see this whole new receiver room. And Pokey Wilson is a guy, you'll never hear an argument from me against him. He has been as consistent could be in Florida State football the past 3 years, however long he's been here. He's been our best receiver, I'd like to think.
Yeah, I always have an interesting I have an interesting feeling with him, right? Because it's always like, I respect what he's done for the team, but then I kind of look and I'm like, but the team should be good enough where he's not the one that's your best receiver type.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Same with Keyshawn. Like, Keyshawn had a heck of a year last year, especially coming back from injury. But it's like, I've said this a dozen times, he's a number 3 receiver at a Power 5 school. I think he could be a great number 3 receiver, by the way. But the fact he was your number 1 and he was playing your X so often is like, you have like you said, throwing a fade route to him. You have a 5'10" on a good day guy who's, I don't know, how big is he? 185 to, I don't think he's breaking 200. He's not, it's not like he's, Josh Burrell where he's kind of short, but at least he's huge. And that's who you have to rely on to get open downfield. And, then you have Parchment who, anyway, this isn't just to bash the old wide receivers. This is I am excited about the skill positions we have coming. Last question I get, last topic, I suppose. Our fans here, our listeners, they can talk all day about what they think the season's going to be like. And I know that, we're going to both win 10 games and win 2, and it's going to be amazing and terrible. But what's the vibe around Tallahassee like? And what I mean is more so the student body, because at the risk of rubbing it in, I got to go to school when we were winning championships, right? It was like, I was there a while, but I was there for 2013, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And, it was crazy to watch just how the campus would come alive during football season when you're winning. But what does it do to the student engagement, the student body, when the team's kind of playing like they have been the past few years?
I can tell you it's not very fun when you show up to a Florida State game and they have an ACC opponent and half the stands are empty. The student section will be completely empty at that point. It sucks. I won't beat around the bush. It sucks.
Yeah.
Starting off 0-4 last year, that took all the wind out of our sails because that Notre Dame game was amazing. Every student showed out for that and, make what you wanted the Mackenzie Milton situation. We had some optimism going into the next game. So that we were riding really high at that point. And then, we fell down a flight of stairs against Jacksonville State. And I think from that point on, that was kind of it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Losing to Jacksonville State, you're getting memed to death on Twitter and Instagram, and there's really no coming back from that. I think that was kind of where all the energy went out the window for the Florida State student body last year was that Jacksonville State game.
Yeah, and I guess to tie that back around, we are so quick. And when I say we, I mean FSU fans, at Twitter mostly. We're so quick to forget that people are human and that kids in high school all experience the same things, whether you're a D1 recruit or not. And when people, try to say, well, we lost to Jacksonville State, but this, that, the other, it's like, you're right. But imagine you're committed to Florida State. And after that game, you don't think every commit we had inbox from all their friends that they met at every camp that are committed to other schools wasn't blowing up. Like I couldn't go more than 5 feet, right, without anyone who knew I went to FSU, like for 2 weeks, it was like, hey, so how you doing?
To make matters worse, I was on the field. I was actually working that game, and I was holding cables in the end zone where they scored, where they dogpiled. So I was on TV when they showed it on ESPN, the top 10 play when number one of him, running in the end zone with the ball. I'm right in the bottom. So, times 10 that all my buddies, there was no hearing the end of that. So I can't imagine being a Travis Hunter, a guy that's the number one recruit in the nation, a guy who is friends with tons of football players. And I mean, he probably got it till no end.
Yeah. No, seriously, man. It's, yeah. And then conversely, the reason I did that was not to end on a sour note is to end on the positive. So let's put ourselves in the other shoe or I don't know what the metaphor is here, but let's think about the other side of that, right? If you're considering Florida State and we come out and we beat an LSU and then, we have a close one or even win one against Louisville and we're going into September and we've actually won some games. Well, now saying like, hey, I'm thinking about going to FSU isn't embarrassing. Cause I got to think like, I mean, you were there for the Notre Dame game. You work with Seminole Productions. How big was that official visitor section? What do we have? Like 20 kids on campus and another probably 24 unofficials from the junior class there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was an insane amount of recruits. I mean, for that Notre Dame game, and they had a lot of recruits next week at Jacksonville State to make matters worse. I think that's probably where Travis Hunter probably made up his mind at that game. But I know he was there. Yeah. I mean, the recruits were out for that game. And, I don't think you could really paint a better picture of Florida State other than the fact that we won that game.
Exactly. So you take that and it's like, if we can just do that this year, but actually be putting wins on the board, you're probably going to flip some of these kids. Is it safe to say, Hunter, that just because Miami's gotten a few decent recruits and we're sitting at like the 33 ranked recruiting class in 247, the world has not come to an end and this is a team that very well could play their way into a top 15 recruiting class?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how quickly people forget things in the world we live in today, whether it be on Twitter. I mean, there's going to be a new team that loses next week and another team that wins, and it's going to completely flip around. And I just think that it can change so fast. And people are so quick to forget things nowadays. I mean, LSU lost to Temple, 4 years ago, and then won the national championship a year and a half later, 2 years later. Things can happen really fast in college football. So yeah, 100%. I don't think the sky is falling right now. I mean, especially where we were last year. Exactly like you said, we were top 10 and Miami was load more you. And, look where we are now. We lost Travis Hunter and everyone else. So
load more you. I love it, man. Well, it's good to have some youthful optimism on here, folks. Thanks for stopping by. As always, we love having you. That was Hunter. I'm Max. And this was Locked On Seminoles.